I follow a lot of really bad accounts on X because I like to keep an eye on the pathology of the left, let's say, and the pathology of the right, thinking, at least in my clinical way, that I'm watching the psychopaths dance around and try to do what their subversion. And it's an ugly place to inhabit, that's for sure. But it's also the case that a very tiny minority of seriously bad actors can have a disproportionate influence. And one of the things I've always hoped for social media channels is that they separate the anonymous accounts from the verified accounts. They should just be in different categories. People who will say what they think and take the hits to their reputation. Anonymous types, if you want to see what the anonymous types say, you can see it, but don't be confusing them with actual people because they're not the same. We know that people behave more badly when they're anonymous. That's a very well-established psychological finding. Well, and I think the danger to our culture is substantive. I think the reason that everything started to go sideways pretty seriously around 2015 is because we invented these new modes of communication. We have no idea how to police them. And so the psychopathic manipulators, they have free rein. About 30% of the internet is pornography. A huge amount of internet traffic is outright criminal. And there's a penumbra around that's, psychopathic, narcissistic, troublemaking trolls. And that might constitute the bulk of the interactions online. And it's partly because people can't be held responsible. So the free riders have free rein.
It's a fascinating technical challenge of how to make our society resilient to the psychopaths on the left and the right.
Yeah. It might be the fundamental problem of the age, given the amplification of communication by our social networks.
And sort of to generalize across psychopaths, you could also think about bots.
Yeah.
Which behave similar to psychopaths in their certainty and not caring. They're maximizing some function. They're not caring about anything else. Attention,
yeah. Short-term attention, even worse. Yeah, because you might, that's another problem, eh? Like if the algorithms are maximizing for the grip of short-term attention, they're acting like immature agents of attention, right? And so then imagine the worst case scenario is negative emotion garners more attention. And short-term gratification garners more attention. So then you're maximizing for the grip of short-term attention by negative emotion. I mean, that's not going to be a principle. If we were talking earlier about, unsustainable unifying axioms, that's definitely one of them. Maximize for the spread of negative emotion that garners short-term attention. Jesus, brutal.
I tend to not think there's that many psychopaths. So maybe to push back a little bit, it feels like there's a small number of psychopaths.
3 to 5% is the estimate worldwide.
In terms of humans, sure. But in terms of the pattern of stuff we see online, my hope is that a lot of people on the extreme left and extreme right, or just the trolls in general, are just young people kind of going through the similar stuff that we've been talking about, trying on the cynicism and the resentment. There's a drug aspect to it. There's a pull to that. To talk shit about somebody, to take somebody down. I mean, there is some pleasure in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dark pull towards that. And I think
that's the sadistic pull.
And I think a lot of people, I mean, you see, when you say sadistic, it makes it sound like it's a pathology.
It's pleasure in the suffering of others. Right?
But I just think that all of us have the capacity for that. All humans have the capacity for that.
Yeah, some more than others, but everyone to some degree.
And when you're young, you don't understand the full implications of that on your own self.
Yeah.
So if you participate in taking other people down, that's going to have a cost on your own development as a human being. Like it's going to take you towards the Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, in the basement, cynical, all that kind of
alone.
stuff. Which is why a lot of young people try it out. The reason is you get older and older, you realize that there's a huge cost to that, so you don't do it. But there's young people that, so like I would like to sort of believe and hope that a large number of people who are trolls are just trying out the derision,
no doubt,
and then so they can be saved, they can be helped, they can be shown that there's more growth, there's more flourishing to celebrating other people, and it actually and criticizing ideas, but not in the way of derision, LOL, but by formulating your own self in the world, by formulating your ideas in a strong, powerful way, and also removing the cloak of anonymity and just standing behind your ideas and carrying the responsibility of those ideas. Yeah.
I think all of that is right. I think the idea that that's more likely to occur among young people, that's clear. People, as they mature, get more agreeable and conscientious. So we actually know that what you said is true technically. It's definitely the case that there's an innate tilt towards pleasure in that sort of behavior, and it is associated to some degree with dominance striving. And I do think it's true, as you pointed out, that many of the people who are toying with that pattern can be socialized out of it. In fact, maybe most people. Even the repeat criminal types tend to desist in their late 20s. So imagine that, 1% of the criminals commit 65% of the crimes. So imagine that 1% are the people that you're really concerned with. They often have stable patterns of offending that emerged in very, very young, like even in infancy, and continued through adolescence and into adulthood. If you keep them in prison until they're in the middle of their late 20s, most of them stop. And that might be the easiest way to understand that might just be delayed maturation. So are most people salvageable? Yes, definitely. Is everyone salvageable? Well, at some point it becomes, first of all, they have to want to be salvaged. That's a problem. But then it also becomes something like, well, how much resources are you going to devote to that? Like the farther down the rabbit hole you've gone, the more energy it takes to haul you up. So there comes a point where the probability that you'll be able to get enough resources devoted to you to rescue you from the pit of hell that you've dug is zero. And that's a very sad thing. And it's very hard to be around someone who's in that situation. Very, very hard.
And it seems that it's more likely that the leaders of movements are going to be psychopaths, and the followers of movements are going to be the people that we're mentioning that are kind of lost themselves to the ideology of the movement.
Well, we know that what you said is true even historically to a large degree, because Germany was successfully denazified. And it's not like everybody who participated in every element of the Nazi movement was brought to justice, not in the least. The same thing happened in Japan. So to some degree, the same thing happened in South Africa, right? And it's the case, for example, also in the stories that we were referring to earlier, the biblical stories, the patriarchs of the Bible. Most of them are pretty bad people when they first start out. Like Jacob's a really good. Jacob is the one who becomes Israel. He's a major player in the biblical narrative, and he's a pretty bad actor when he first starts out. He's a mama's boy. He's a liar. He steals from his own brother, and in a major way, he deceives his father. He's a coward, and yet he turns his life around.
So be careful, the leaders you idolize and worship. But then it's not always clear to know who is the good and who's the evil.
Yeah.
It's hard.